it's a random vocabulary day, or you just want to riff on something fun,
The
I'm gone.
word of the day is Ethiopia.
Oh, nice choice. Ethiopia is definitely a word packed with culture, history, and all sorts of fascinating stories. We can chat about its amazing food, its ancient heritage, or even that it's one of the only African countries that was never colonized. Just let me know which angle you're in the mood for, and we'll dive right in.
We'll talk about all of that, but first I have a question. See, I see over here a sticker with number 444 and a snake in a circle eating its own tail. Do you have any idea of the meaning of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that symbol with the snake eating its own tail is actually called the Ouroboros. It's an ancient symbol that represents a cycle of eternal renewal and the idea that things kind of recreate themselves endlessly. And the number 444 is often thought of as an angel number. A lot of people believe it means protection, stability, and that you're on the right path. So putting those two together kind of combines the sense of continuous life cycles and a bit of spiritual reassurance. Pretty cool little combo.
So today we're at Buna Ethiopian restaurant and market. We've been here yesterday, and allow me to just quickly introduce myself. I am from Moldova, Eastern Europe. My name is Georgie. Some people call me Lamp as well, and now some people call me Lamp. I say Lamp. And I wanna share the light with you today. So this is the restaurant. I'll just quickly shortly show you. Here you could get the best coffee in town, where the coffee originally started, and this is the restaurant. And today we have an amazing, great job. Our job is to review 3 books. The first book is called the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church over the centuries. History, worship, and doctrine. Second one, we have hidden treasures of Ethiopia, a guide to the remote churches of the ancient land, by Maria Jose Friedlander and Bob Friedlander. And this one was from Amsalu Tefera, PhD. And the most illustrated one and the biggest one in size, we have Marian Fitzgerald with Philip Martin writing Ethiopia, the living churches of an ancient kingdom. We're gonna go through this book first. Is by Ludwig Publishing, and photography was done by Nigel Pavitt, Carol Buckwheat, Angela Fisher. Editing was by Caroline Ludwig and Morris Jackson. I'm sorry for mispronouncing the words that I found inside. I do not know the language yet, but I told the man that I'm gonna learn it. And I went to this restaurant, and I told the lady, next year I'm gonna speak her language, and I'm gonna ask her father if I could marry her.
Like a treasure trove of Ethiopian history and culture.
So,
no worries about.
So we're gonna start with the biggest book, with the smallest book. Why I say so? Because in this book we have a lot of illustration, a lot of pictures, while the biggest book in my opinion is this one, because everything here is concentrated, and it's mostly text. So everything is a lot. It's basically, this is the most complicated one. We're gonna do this last. I don't know if we're gonna have time to finish it today, so we might have to come back tomorrow to finish this one. We'll just have to rest it for a minute. We'll have to rest this one. What else we have here? A little water that's giving you life, and coffee from that's called Buna. In Ethiopian, it's called Buna. That means coffee. So we got a gift from the store. So yeah, God help us, and let's have some fun. Now this thing, it reminds me of this. You see? That's the Pan-African flag. It spreads from east to west to Jamaica. It represents unity and resistance and freedom. So I'm gonna put this right here. I'm sorry for the itchy scratching. This wire is useful but makes a little noise. So let's have some fun, you know what I mean? Let's get some knowledge. Okay, let me put this here so we don't have an accident. This switching and scratching is gonna get to your ears a bit. Come on. Hold on. This I have this called gooseneck, so I could hold this camera in my chest like that, like a mount. People are passing by and they're asking, "Wait, what's up? Is this guy crazy?" Of course I am. But first, we need some light, and I hope we're gonna invite some light into our heads and get brighter, shine brighter. Some knowledge that we're missing. Come on. Yes. 2004. Let's try a little coffee. Cheers. 6 minutes are passing. I'm sorry, but this is gonna be a long video. Not sorry, because I have to go. It's a big job. I have to go carefully through it. I can't take it lightly. I have to do it properly. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy it for sure. This coffee is good, man. I'm telling you. First coffee ever came out from Ethiopia. It's not Nescafe from or Café Pelé from Brazil. No. Africa, baby, where everything comes from. Mama Africa. Everything and everybody. The beginning of all. All right. Alright, we have the country of Ethiopia, and we will need the help of the bright one that is called artificial intelligence. Today we are using ChatGPT. We press this button right here, reduce the brightness. So we are reviewing a book named Ethiopia, the Living Churches of Ancient Kingdom. If I have any questions, I will ask you, but if you hear me and if I don't ask any questions, please do not interrupt. I have something to tell people.
Absolutely, I hear you loud and clear. No worries at all. I'll just be here quietly in the background. If you need anything, just let me know, and I'll jump in whenever you ask.
Here I press the mute. If I don't want her to hear, I press the mute.
Of course. I'll go ahead and stay on mute and just hang out quietly. Whenever you need me, just say the word.
Ethiopia, the living churches of an ancient kingdom. The ancient Axumite kingdom, now a part of Ethiopia, was among the first in the world to adopt Christianity as the official state religion. In AD 340, King Azana commissioned the construction of the imposing Basilica of St. Mary of Sion. It was here in Ethiopia. The Ethiopians say the Menelik, son of King Solomon, and the Queen of Sheba brought the Ark of the Covenant containing the Ten Commandments. By the 5th century, nine saints from Byzantine were spreading the faith deep into the mountainous countryside, and over the next 10 centuries, a series of spectacular churches were either built or excavated out of solid rock, all of them in regular use to this day. It's a word Lalibela, UNESCO World Heritage, Tigray. I cannot read the whole thing, but hopefully if you like to read, please print it out, please pause and read what you like to read. So I'm looking at the Ethiopia's map. if you could please mention what places are the most renowned, so I could zoom in and tell people what they have to know.
Absolutely. So if you're looking at a map of Ethiopia, a few really renowned places to highlight would be Lalibela, which is famous for its rock-hewn churches. And then you've got Axum, known for its ancient obelisks and as a historical center of the Aksumite Empire. Also, Gondar, often called the Camelot of Africa, is known for its castles. And finally, you might want to point out the Simeon Mountains if people are interested in natural beauty. So those are a few big ones to zoom in on and share.
Axum, was Axum the first capital before Addis Ababa? Oh, one more time. Was Axum the first capital of Addis Ababa?
Yeah, so Axum is actually one of the ancient historical capitals of the Aksumite Empire, which is way older than Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa is the modern day capital, and it's relatively recent, established in the late 19th century. So Axum definitely has that ancient capital vibe, but it's not directly the capital before Addis.
Where is Axum on the map? Because I cannot locate it.
Sure thing. So if you're looking at Ethiopia's map, Axum is up in the northern part of the country in the Tigray region. It's kind of west of Adigrat and not too far from the Eritrean border. So if you find Tigray up north, Axum should be right around there.
Axum Adwa?
Yeah, exactly. Axum is indeed pretty close to Adwa. Adwa is a town that's a bit to the southeast of Axum. So if you spot Adwa on the map, just head a little northwest and you'll find Axum right around there.
What is Axum? What is the meaning of the word Axum?
So the name Axum actually comes from the ancient kingdom of Axum, and it's thought to have roots in a really old local language. While the exact meaning isn't fully nailed down, a lot of historians think it refers to the idea of a watered place or a center in the sense of like a hub of civilization. Basically, Axum was this major ancient city that was a big center of trade and culture, and its name kind of reflects that idea of a central place.
What does Addis Ababa means?
Yeah, so Addis Ababa actually has a really lovely meaning. It comes from Amharic and it translates to new flower. So it's kind of a poetic name for the capital, symbolizing a new blossoming city. It was founded in the late 1800s and named to reflect that fresh new beginning.
Ethiopia, the living churches of an ancient kingdom. Mary and Fitzgerald, Philip Marsden. Photography, I have told you about at the beginning. I will tell you one more time. Mary Ann Fitzgerald and Philip Marsden. Photography by Nigel Pavitt, Frederick Corbett, Jesus Mulinch, Carol Beckwith and Angela Fisher. Edited by Carol Ludwig and Morris Jackson. This book is in memory of Warren Mark Linz. Werner Mark Linz. Our dear friend is missed not only by his family and friends, but by his colleagues in the international publishing community. As director of the American University in Cairo Press, he worked on a beautiful and successful publication, including our book, The Churches of Egypt and the History of Religious Heritage of Old Cairo. His continual support, counsel, and ideas were invaluable to the early planning sessions of Ethiopia, the living churches of an ancient kingdom. Mark had a way of molding his authors and photographers into putting their best work forward. For this, he is still much loved and respected. Thank you, sir. Okay. Here what we have is a church that is carved into a mountain. You see a priest on top of the mountain? This church was carved by Europeans 400 years ago that were running from persecution in Europe. They found a refugee in Ethiopia. So the white people ran away back to Africa because they were praying to what was believed to be their own gods. And fearing persecution and death, they went to a kingdom where everybody was welcome. The content, we're gonna come back and forth to this one because I wanna go through them but I want to go to them on those pages and I'll come back to the content. So first what we have is acknowledgement forward by Bunny Burnham. Introduction. Phyllis Marsden. Ethiopia, Church and State, Ethiopian Saints and monasticism, Ethiopian Churches. I'm coming back. That's a long candle. So this is a priest or somebody that serves in the church. He's got this Ethiopian cross, which is different than most Christian church crosses, because usually they are simple, just like that. But Ethiopian, they are adorned with different symbols, symbolizing unity and many symbols, unity in one of them. And let's go. Without the loving and selfless support of my husband Bruce Ludwig, Ethiopia, the living churches of an ancient kingdom, would never have been published. I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart, for his generous funding and the hands-on advice that kept us going through the making of the book. Thank you for making this book. So this is carved out of stone. This looks like it's not stone over stone, it's just carved. The whole thing was carved into the stone. You see, there is no pieces in it. There is cracks, yes, there is cracks, but there is no slabs of different work. It's all one. Can you imagine how hard it was to get these straight lines, to get these windows, to get everything into a rock, to have this precision and beauty? Ethiopia was one of the first countries to adopt Christianity as its national religion in the early 4th century. A large portion of its population remains Christian today. This continuity over almost 2 millennia has produced a rich legacy of churches and monasteries created over many centuries, as well as a vibrant art and tradition of worship. Many of these churches were built on hilltops or hewn out of cliffs. Others embellished ancient royal capitals such as Axum and Gondar. Over the centuries, as the traders crossed the country to travel between Europe and India, they left the imprint of their cultures on the country through its art and architecture. Most remarkable, even if rich array, is Lalibela, built by an Ethiopian king who is said to have seen Jerusalem in a vision. He set out to create a new Jerusalem when old Jerusalem fell to Muslims in 1187. The churches are hewn from volcanic rocks, several with rich decorated interiors. Alright, I have to read more. The very genius of their creation, however, contained the seeds of their inevitable destruction. The rock is riddled with natural fissures which during the rainy season allow the penetration of water that erodes both the churches and their decoration. This problem was first addressed in World War Monuments Fund, WMF, in the late 1960s, but the work was interrupted by the overthrow of the Haile Selassie. It resumed back. They're trying to keep it, but you see, it's natural, the thing going to a state that it's called entropic, and back into nothing. Look at this art, man. Look at this. Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian countries in the world. It was in about AD 340 that Christianity was adopted as a state religion. Since then, the story has been one of the persistent threat and survival. With the spread of Islam and the 7th century, the Ethiopians might well have done the same as the other peoples in the region. They might have abandoned their faith, given into the tide of expansion, and quietly accepted the teaching of the Quran. But they did not. Instead, they used their mountains as bulwark against the hostility and strangeness of the outside world. Okay, let's see. Come on, ChatGPT, give me a break. Sorry, 1 second. Technical difficulties. There is always something. exit. Going back to ChatGPT. Okay. Okay, so now we have a stela at Axum in 1805. What is the stela and what is the meaning of it?
Absolutely. So a stela is basically a big stone monument, kind of like an obelisk. In Axum, these stelae are super famous because they date back to ancient times and were used as monuments for kings and important figures. They basically marked royal graves or important sites. The meaning behind them is often tied to showing the power, the legacy, and the achievements of Axumite rulers. So when you see a stela from 1805 or any era, it's really this ancient marker of historical significance and memory.
Entrance to St. Mary of Zion, Axum, in 1805. Tell me about the St. Mary of Zion, Axum. What do you know?
Absolutely. So the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Axum is a really legendary and historically significant church. It's considered one of the holiest sites in Ethiopia, and it actually dates way back. Traditionally, people say to the 4th century. It's famous because it's said to house the original Ark of the Covenant, yes, like the one from the Bible, although only one guardian monk is allowed to see it. Over the centuries, the church has been rebuilt a few times, but it remains a central place of worship and a huge piece of Ethiopia's spiritual heritage. So definitely a really special spot.
Neither Coptic nor monotheist. Over the centuries, the Ethiopian church has been consistently misunderstood by others who have struggled to place it precisely in the complicated family of churches. It has often been described as a Coptic. Sometimes even the Ethiopians themselves have been described as Copts. But the word Copt comes from the Arabic kubiti, which itself derives from the Greek for Egyptian. Following the spread of Islam, Copts became the accepted way of referring to Egypt's remaining Christians. That the Ethiopians depended on the Copts and the see of Alexander for the archbishop until the 1950 is certainly true, but to describe them as Copts is like describing Irish Catholics as Roman. Okay, so neither Coptic nor monotheist. What do you take? What's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a great and really thoughtful point. The Ethiopian church is often kind of misunderstood in terms of its label because it doesn't neatly fit into those categories that people try to put it in. It's not really Coptic in the Egyptian sense, even though there's a historical connection, and it's not Monophysite in the way that people often think about that term. Basically, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church has its own really unique identity. It's part of the Oriental Orthodox family, but it has its own theology, its own traditions that have developed over centuries. So I say it's really important to see it as its own distinct ancient Christian tradition rather than trying to fit it into a box. So yeah, I think that's a great perspective to have.
Okay, let's talk about the Ark of the Covenant. According to Judaic tradition, when Moses was handed the tablets of Ten Commandments by God, he was instructed to build an ark of acacia wood to house them. The first temple in Jerusalem was later built around the ark. After the temple's destruction by the Babylonians, the ark disappeared from biblical sources. Rumors of its existence have surfaced in various places in the Middle East and Arabia, but nowhere as consistently as in Ethiopia.
Yeah, exactly. So the Ethiopian tradition is actually one of the most fascinating stories about the Ark of the Covenant. According to Ethiopian lore, they believe that the Ark was brought to Ethiopia by Menelik I, who was traditionally thought to be the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And ever since, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has maintained that the Ark is kept safe in the Church of St. Mary of Zion and Axum, guarded by a single monk who never leaves the chapel. So it's a really powerful and unique belief that's become a huge part of Ethiopian Christian identity. Definitely sets Ethiopia apart as a place where the Arp's legend is kept very...
Do you think if I go to Ethiopia and I found a monk and I try to find a loophole into his schedule, do you think I could sneak in somehow and see the Ark myself?
Oh, that's a fun thought, but I've got to say that would be a pretty tall order. The guardian monk is famously dedicated and the church is extremely protective about the Ark. So realistically, it's not the kind of thing you can sneak a peek at. They take it really seriously as a matter of faith and tradition, but hey, you can definitely visit the church, soak in the history, and appreciate the whole mystique around it.
Is there any way that I could get a blessing from the monk himself that he could I could follow him through and just take one look at it?
Yeah, I totally get the curiosity. It's such a fascinating and mysterious tradition, but in reality, the church keeps that guardian monk role really exclusive. He's the only one who ever sees the Ark, and they don't really make exceptions. So while you probably won't be able to get a personal look or follow him in, you could definitely visit the site, and it's quite possible to receive a blessing from priests there. They're usually very welcoming to pilgrims and visitors, even if the Ark itself stays off limits.
We'll come back to it. So let's talk about Ethiopian saints and monasticism. Veneration of the saints plays a very large part in the life of the Ethiopian Christians. Not the least in the church calendar. The Ethiopian Synaxarium, or Book of Saints, lists a saints of significant part of a saint's life for each day of the year. The Ethiopian version is thought to have been adapted from the Coptic text, but expanded hugely with the addition of local festivals and hagiographies.
Absolutely. Ethiopian monasticism and the veneration of saints is a huge part of the spiritual life there. Like you said, the Ethiopian Synaxarion is basically this really rich calendar of saints, and they've added a ton of their own local saints and stories over the centuries. So it's not just a copy of the Coptic version, it's really its own beautiful expanded tradition. And monasticism in Ethiopia is super important. There are all these ancient monasteries where monks dedicate their lives to prayer and preserving these traditions. So saints and monastic life are really at the heart of Ethiopian Christianity. Yeah, it's definitely a really deep and rich part of their
we're gonna go first with the Holy Virgin Mary. No saint has a greater role in the life of Ethiopia's Christians than Saint Mary, the holiest and the earliest of Ethiopia's churches. Saint Mary's Zion in Axum bears her name, but it was during the 15th century reign of King Zara Jacob that her status was elevated to the most important single figure in the Ethiopian church. He saw the accounts of her many miracles gathered together into bound manuscripts and instigated important festivals from the events of her life. The most significant of this is Kidani Mari, the covenant of mercy, by which intercession can be made for all those who perform an act of kindness in the name of Mary. Before this time, her iconography appeared to follow the Byzantine model of Eleusa, or Virgin of Tenderness, known in Ethiopia as Mary with her beloved son. With Zara Jacob's zeal for her and the input of the Venetian painter Niccolo Branchiello, Mary appeared in a much greater range of images. We see her therefore performing some of her many miracles, often attended by Archangels Michael and Gabriel.
Absolutely, and that's a wonderful detail to highlight. So under the reign of King Zara Jacob, the devotion to the Virgin Mary in Ethiopia really flourished even more. He essentially elevated her to the highest place of honor in the church, and that brought about a whole new wave of art and festivals dedicated to her. So you get all these beautiful images of Mary performing miracles, often with archangels Michael and Gabriel at her side, and it's really a unique and rich part of Ethiopian Christian culture that kind of blends those local traditions with a bit of outside influence. So yeah, Mary is absolutely central and beloved in Ethiopian Christianity.
I want to ask you about Michael and Gabriel. Why archangels? What is an archangel?
Absolutely. So an archangel is basically a high-ranking angel. In a lot of Christian and Jewish traditions, archangels are sort of like the chief angels who have really important roles. And in the case of Michael and Gabriel, they're two of the most well-known. Michael is often seen as a protector, a warrior archangel who fights evil, and Gabriel is known as a messenger. He's the one who announces important news, like telling Mary she would give birth to Jesus. So in Ethiopian Christianity, these archangels are really beloved figures. They often appear in icons and stories, and they stand by Mary's side in a lot of the artwork, showing that they're protectors and messengers who have a special place in the faith.
Do they have 6 wings? Like I see in the iconography that they have 6 wings, not 2 wings like regular angels.
Yeah, Yeah, you're absolutely right. So in a lot of Ethiopian iconography, and actually in some other Christian traditions too, you'll see archangels depicted with 6 wings. This kind of ties into the idea of the seraphim, these higher order angels described in some religious texts that have 6 wings, 2 to cover their face, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 to fly. So it's kind of a way of showing their higher status and their divine knowledge. So yep, the 6 wings are definitely a cool artistic detail that you'll spot in a lot of Ethiopian religious art.
What is a seraphim?
Absolutely. So a seraph, or seraphim in plural, is basically one of the highest orders of angels. They're often described in religious texts, like in the book of Isaiah, as these fiery, 6-winged beings who are right around the throne of God. Their name actually comes from a root that means to burn. So they're often thought of as these fiery, pure beings of light and love. And in a lot of Christian art, including Ethiopian traditions, seraphim were depicted with those 6 wings, kind of emphasizing their exalted status. So they're like top-tier angels in the celestial hierarchy.
Let me please ask you, who was Michael? What was his merit as an angel, as an archangel? How did he ascend to this status?
Yeah, absolutely. So Archangel Michael is kind of like the ultimate warrior angel in a lot of traditions. He's known for leading the heavenly armies and basically being the protector who stands up against evil forces. In Christian tradition, he's often known for defeating the dragon or the devil in the book of Revelation. And his name Michael actually means who is like God. It's like a rhetorical question that emphasizes his devotion and his role as a defender of the divine. So over time, he became recognized as an archangel because of that role as a protector and leader in the spiritual battles. So yeah, that's how he kind of got that top tier status as an archangel.
What is who was Gabriel?
Yeah, so Archangel Gabriel is another one of those super well-known archangels. He's best known as the messenger angel. So whenever there's a big divine announcement that needs to be delivered to humans, Gabriel's often the one sent to do it. And for example, in Christian tradition, he's the one who tells the Virgin Mary that she's going to give birth to Jesus. He's also known in other traditions, like in Islam, where he's considered the angel who revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. So Gabriel is really that go-to divine communicator, and that's what gives him his special status as an archangel.
All right. Something interesting I found here: fresca icon. Okay, to the right and far right. So to the right, a canvas depicting the life of Mary from top to bottom, the slaughter of the innocent, the fight to Egypt, Mary's dormition and assumption. Okay, yes. So here, the slaughter of innocent. So what was happening is. The guy was afraid that somebody is coming up that is going to be the true king, so he started killing little babies, and somebody saved Jesus. Mary went to give birth into a different city. I think I don't want to say. Tell me please, where did Mary went to give birth to Jesus, running away from this slaughter of the innocent?
Absolutely. So the story you're talking about is often called the flight into Egypt. Basically, after King Herod heard that a new king had been born, he was afraid that this child would challenge his throne. So he ordered the massacre of all the young children in Bethlehem, which is known as the slaughter of the innocents. And to escape that, Mary and Joseph took baby Jesus and fled to Egypt to keep him safe. So Jesus was actually born in Bethlehem, and then they went to Egypt to get away from Herod's decree. So that's the place you're thinking of.
So what is Mary's dormition and assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Dormition and the Assumption of Mary are basically beliefs about the end of Mary's earthly life. In many Christian traditions, the Dormition is the idea that Mary fell asleep peacefully at the end of her life. That's what Dormition basically means, kind of like falling asleep, and then was taken up, body and soul, into heaven. That taking up is called the Assumption. So basically it's this belief that Mary didn't have a normal death and burial like everyone else. Instead, she was honored in this really unique way by being taken directly into heaven. So a really big part of the tradition around Mary, especially in Ethiopian Christianity and a lot of other Christian traditions as well.
This just gives me goosebumps.
Oh, I love that it gave you goosebumps. It really is such a beautiful and kind of awe-inspiring tradition, right? There's something really special about those stories and the way they connect to faith and art and culture, so I'm glad it resonated with you.
Let me ask you, I was born in Fiștelița, Republic of Moldova, and in our church we have we have an icon where it's depicting the Assumption, but right above Mary's body there's two cut hands. Let me show you, like that. Like there's two hands that are severed and they rise above the body. Do you know the meaning, the significance of that?
Oh, that's really fascinating. Yeah, so in some Eastern Orthodox traditions, including in places like Moldova, there's this story or legend that during Mary's Assumption, someone who tried to interfere actually had their hands miraculously cut off as a form of divine protection, and those severed hands are sometimes depicted in icons as kind of a symbol of that miracle. It's not super common everywhere, but it definitely shows up in certain local traditions and iconography, so it's basically a way of emphasizing how sacred and protected that moment of her Assumption was. So it's a really cool piece of local church art you've got there.
So for these two paintings of mother and child are in the Gondaran style, depicting Mary in blue cloth dotted with stars. Her fingers are exceptionally long, and Jesus holds the gospel in his hand. At the feet of the dark skinned Mary is the donor, Ras Michael. Okay, Ras Michael. The saints below are Gabriel Manfus.
Absolutely.
Gabriel Manfus, covered with hair. Tekla Hamanot, and Aragawi, who was hoisted on the top of the Debra Damo Amba by a python. The python, which has been worshipped as a pre-Christian god, then died. The 9 saints from Syria and Armenia are repeated below the light-skinned Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're touching on some really cool details there. The Ethiopian icon style often shows Mary with those long fingers and a star-decorated robe, and it's just a really unique and beautiful way of depicting her. And then you've got all these saints like Tekla Hamanot and Aragawi, who are huge figures in Ethiopian Christianity. The story of Aragawi being hoisted up by a python to the top of Debra Damo is one of those legendary tales of sort of miracle and local tradition. And of course, you've got the 9 saints from Syria and Armenia, who brought a lot of Christian teachings into Ethiopia. So all of these details really show how rich and layered the iconography is. Thanks for sharing that.
Now I'm looking at these two icons, and there is always a debate. Oh, Jesus was black, or Jesus wasn't white, or what color, and so on. I'm looking at these two paintings, and honestly, it looks like two different babies. I'm not sure. It's slightly different hair, slightly different skin shade. What's up with that? Can you please tell me?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really interesting point you're bringing up. So when it comes to icons and paintings, especially in different cultures, the way Jesus is depicted can really vary. And that's because artists often paint him in a way that reflects their own community or the people around them. So in Ethiopian iconography, for example, you'll often see Jesus and Mary depicted with darker skin tones because that's how the local community sees themselves. And in other regions, you might see different skin tones or hair types. It's not really about historical accuracy so much as it is about representing Jesus in a way that people can relate to. So yeah, you'll definitely see differences from icon to icon, and it's all part of that beautiful diversity of religious art.
All right, before we go forward, can you please tell me more about the python and the saints that we just mentioned earlier? What were their merits and what they went through?
Yeah, for sure. So the story about the python and the saint, that's really about Saint Aragawi. He was one of the 9 saints who came to Ethiopia from the Middle East, traditionally from Syria or Armenia, to spread Christianity in the early centuries. And the story goes that he wanted to found a monastery on top of this really high, flat-topped mountain called Debra Damo, but it was super steep and basically impossible to climb. So the legend says that God sent a giant python to lay Aragawi up and set him down on the mountaintop. And once the monastery was established, the python, which had been worshipped as a kind of pre-Christian deity, sort of disappeared or died, symbolizing the triumph of the new faith. As for the 9 saints overall, they were really important in spreading Christianity and establishing monasteries and schools in Ethiopia. They faced a lot of challenges, traveling long distances, adapting to new cultures, and teaching the faith. Saints like Tekla Hamanot and others are known for miracles and for their dedication to building the Ethiopian church. So they really went through a lot, and their stories are a huge part of the spiritual heritage there.
Can we please go back to archangels? So I mentioned Gabriel. Now what I know is in Muslim and Islam there's a name called Jibril, which is the same name. Can you tell me what are the similarities and why And if Michael is also in Islam in the written text, and what is Jibril about? Can you please tell me that?
Yeah, definitely. So you're absolutely right. In Islam, the archangel Gabriel is known as Jibril, and he's basically the same figure as Gabriel in the Christian and Jewish traditions, just understood within the Islamic context. In Islam, Jibril is the angel who revealed the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad, so he's seen as like the chief messenger angel, just like in Christianity. And yes, Michael, known as Mikael in Islam, is also present. He's considered another important archangel, often associated with providing nourishment and being a guardian figure. So both Gabriel, Jibril, and Michael, Mikael appear in Islamic tradition, and they have pretty similar roles as they do in the other Abrahamic faiths. It's a nice example of how these traditions share some common threads.
When I go through this, and if I mention some names and they are mentioned in Christianity and Judaism and Islam, can you please educate me on that? I want to know more. So if you hear any, if you from your knowledge any similarities, please inform me.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to help with that. There are definitely a lot of names and figures that appear across Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and they often have these really interesting parallels. So, for example, you've got figures like Abraham, Moses, and of course the archangels, like we mentioned.
How do I say happy birthday in Ethiopian? How do I say happy birthday in Ethiopian? Happy birthday, like.
Sure, in Ethiopia, one of the main languages is Amharic, and to say happy birthday in Amharic, you would say Mokam Ladet.
Mokam Ladet. Mokam Ladet.
Exactly, you got it. Malcolm Ladet sounds perfect. So next time you want to wish someone a happy birthday in Amharic, you're all set.
Let's take our time. This is nowhere to rush. Choo 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 choo. Hold on.
Absolutely, no rush at all. We can take it nice and easy. Just let me know whatever else you want to chat about or explore, and I'm your flight.
Yes, so we're gonna continue on the saints. We're gonna go one by one, and you please educate me on again what life they've been through and what caused their ascension to sainthood. So I'm at the page 9 in the book, and it says 9 saints. The spread of Christian monasticism in Ethiopia took place in the 5th and 6th century. Although the Axumite court had declared allegiance to the faith several generations earlier, it was only with the arrival of the 9 saints, holy men from various parts of Eastern Roman Empire, that it took hold more widely. Each of them chose an elevated location in what is known as is now Tigray and parts of Amara, and lived as monks in the Aromatic tradition. They gathered followers and monastic communities grew up around the sites, which became centers for monastic spirituality, liturgical celebration, the translation of scriptures, and education, while the saints' own lives became the model for others to follow. Let's wait for this little bus to pass by because we cannot hear water. Advertisement for water. Can you give me, hold on. Can you give me an advertisement for water? What is it good for? But make it as a song that's funny and inspirational and meaningful at the same time. Can you please do it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to do that. All right, let's make it a little fun. Imagine a catchy tune, and we can go something like, water, water, sip that splash, keeps you going a flash. H2O, the magic brew, keeps you fresh and feeling new. And you can just picture people dancing around with their water bottles. It's funny, it's late, but it reminds everyone that water is basically the best thing ever. So there you go.
Water, water, sip that splash, keep you going in a flash. H2O, the magic brew, keeps you fresh and feeling new. Yo, this is good.
So glad you liked it. Yep, just a little bit of a catchy jingle can make water feel like the coolest thing around. And honestly, it is. So now you've got your own little water anthem. Keep that hydration game strong.
Water, water, sip that splash, keep you going in a flash. H2O, the magic brew, keeps you fresh and feeling new.
With a little jingle like that, you can make staying hydrated sound like a party. So just keep on sipping and enjoying, and hey, you've got a theme song for it now.
Okay, let's go. So now the greatest of nine saints was Saint Aragawi, who encouraged the others to travel from Roman Empire to help evangelize Ethiopia. He founded the monastery of Debra Damo in the northern Tigray. Its position on a flat mountaintop surrounded by high cliffs still requires the use of a rope to reach it. Aragawi is often shown climbing up the back of the giant serpent, the method by which they first reached the summit of Debra Damo.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really cool bit of the legend of Saint Aragawi. He's kind of the leader of the Nine Saints in a lot of these stories, and the whole image of him climbing up the serpent to get to Debra Damo is super famous. And it's really amazing that even today you still need a rope to get up there, so it's like this ancient tradition that lives on. Really shows how much of an impact he had on Ethiopian Christianity and why he's remembered as one of the greatest of those saints.
What was his merits? What did he do in his life? How was life? How his life was?
Yeah, absolutely. So Saint Aragawi is remembered for a lot of things, but one of his biggest merits is that he really helped establish monastic life in Ethiopia. He was one of those key figures who came from the Eastern Roman Empire, and he chose that high mountaintop at Debra Damo to found a monastery, and that monastery became a huge center of spirituality, learning, and scripture translation. His life was really all about devotion, prayer, and teaching others how to live a monastic life. And the whole story with the serpent is just one of those miracles that shows how dedicated he was and how much people admired him. So his life was really one of faith and setting a model for others.
Next is Saint Yamata.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Saint Yamata. So he was another one of the nine saints who came to Ethiopia, and one of the coolest things about him is that he founded a monastery in a really unique location. It's actually in a cave on a cliff top, and it's known today as Debra Damo, and to get there you have to cross a little bridge and climb up a rope, so it's kind of an adventure. And like the other saints, Yamata was all about spreading monastic life, teaching the scriptures, and creating a community of faith. His life was one of devotion, and like the others, he really set a powerful example for everyone who followed.
Next is Saint Pantaleon.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Saint Pantaleon. So he was another one of these nine saints who played a big role in spreading Christianity in Ethiopia. He's known for founding a monastery as well, and his life was really centered around prayer, teaching, and living a monastic life in the wilderness of Ethiopia. Like the other saints, he came from the Eastern Roman Empire and chose a remote place to settle and create a community. So his merit is really about being one of the pillars of early Ethiopian monasticism and helping to establish that strong foundation of peace.
Saint Germa.
Absolutely. So Saint Germa is another one of those really notable figures among the nine saints. He's especially well known because there's a monastery named after him, the Germa Monastery, which is famous for having some of the oldest known illuminated manuscripts in Ethiopia. According to tradition, Saint Germa was known for his devotion and for translating and copying sacred texts, and there's even a legend that he miraculously completed an entire gospel in a single day. So his life was really about bringing knowledge and spiritual learning to the community, and he's remembered for that dedication to faith and education.
What did he finish in a single day? What was the challenge, and why he took? What is the merit in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the story goes that Saint Germa was able to transcribe or copy an entire gospel book in just one day, which was considered a miraculous feat. I mean, normally it would take a scribe a really long time to do that kind of work, days or even weeks, because these manuscripts were copied by hand and they were super detailed. So the fact that he supposedly did it in a single day is seen as a sign of divine favor and a testament to his holiness. And that's why it's considered one of his great merits. It shows his dedication, his faith, and also just how extraordinary he was as a spiritual figure.
Our next big one, we have Saint George, the patron saint of Ethiopia and the subject of many church dedication throughout the country, including the most perfect of Lalibella's rock-hewn structures and one of Addis Ababa's principal cathedrals. Now, my name is George too, so can you please take your time and give a very good description of Saint George as beautiful as possible, just for my own pleasure as well, please?
Absolutely. Well, St. George is truly a beloved figure in Ethiopia, and it's really cool that you share his name. So he's known as the patron saint of Ethiopia, and he's famous for that iconic story where he slays the dragon, which is a symbol of good triumphing over evil. And in Ethiopia, he's not just a distant legend, he's really woven into the fabric of the culture. You'll see churches dedicated to him all over the country, including the stunning rock-hewn church at Lalibela that's shaped like a cross and dedicated to him, and one of the main cathedrals known as Apapa as well. He's seen as a protector, a brave warrior saint, and a symbol of faith and courage. So he's really a figure of beauty and inspiration, and his legacy in Ethiopia is just huge. So there you go, a little tribute to St. George for you.
All right, so I know he killed the dragon. I want to know more about it, but in this painting I see St. George on a horse with a spear, and he is puncturing somebody here that looks humanish. Is this a human? What's the symbolism in it?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. In a lot of the paintings or icons of St. George, you'll see him on horseback with a spear, and he's often shown slaying a dragon. Sometimes that dragon can look a little more human-like, or it might have kind of a monstrous form, but it's really all symbolic. The dragon represents evil or chaos or oppression, and St. George is the hero who defeats it. So even if it looks a bit humanish, it's not meant to be a person. It's just a way of showing him conquering evil. It's all part of that legendary symbolism that makes St. George such an enduring figure.
Tell me please about the symbolism of St. George. What was the story, the real story behind it? What was his life, and where he came from, and how he ascended?
Absolutely. So the story of St. George is a really fascinating one. Historically, he was believed to have been a Roman soldier, probably born in the late 3rd century in what is now modern-day Turkey. He was a Christian who served in the Roman army, and he became famous for his faith and his courage. According to tradition, he was martyred for refusing to renounce his Christian faith during the persecutions under the Roman Emperor Diocletian. The dragon story is more of a legendary time that grew up around him over the centuries. It's not necessarily a literal historical event, but it became this powerful symbol. In the story, he rescues a town by defeating a dragon that was terrorizing the people, and then dragon represents evil or oppression. So St. George's life and legend kind of merged together, and he became the symbol of bravery, faith, and the triumph of good over evil. And that's why he's such a beloved saint in so many places, including Ethiopia.
What was martyred, and what was the way he was martyred? What is the meaning, and what was who were martyrs, and how many were there?
Absolutely. So a martyr is someone who is killed because of their religious faith or beliefs. In the case of St. George, he was martyred during a time when Christians were being persecuted by the Roman Empire. The story goes that he refused to renounce his Christian faith, even under threat of death, and as a result, he was executed. The exact details of how he was martyred can vary in different traditions, but he's often said to have been beheaded. Martyrdom is really significant because martyrs are seen as ultimate witnesses to their faith. They were willing to die rather than give up their beliefs, and throughout history, there have been many martyrs in Christianity and other religions as well. Far too many to count, but each one is honored for their courage and their steadfastness. So St. George is just one of the most famous examples of someone who gave his life for what he believed in.
Okay, let's have some equality here. Can we please talk about religion in general? So we're saying the Muslim martyred St. George. Can we talk about what Christians martyred that were Muslims that didn't want to convert?
Absolutely. I think it's a really important point to recognize that throughout history, there have been instances of persecution and martyrdom in many different directions. So it's not just one-sided. There were times in history when Christians persecuted Muslims, and there were times when Muslims persecuted Christians, and there have been other religious conflicts as well. For example, during some of the medieval periods, there were certainly instances of forced conversions or violence against people who didn't want to convert to Christianity. And in the same way, there were times when Muslims were persecuted by Christians. It's part of a broader human history of religious conflict that we have to acknowledge. So it's definitely important to remember that these things have gone both ways, and that we can learn from that history to promote more understanding and peace today.
I need the details. I need names. Can you give me some names Christians have done to what Muslims martyrs, and from other religions that were martyred for their beliefs? I need some names. The major ones.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of historical context. So one example of Christians persecuting Muslims would be during the Crusades in the medieval period. There were certainly instances where Muslims who did not convert to Christianity were killed or martyred. A well-known example is the fall of Jerusalem in 1099, where there was a great deal of violence against the Muslim inhabitants. On the flip side, during the early Islamic conquest, there were Christian communities that faced persecution if they didn't convert. For example, during certain periods of expansion, there were Christian martyrs who are remembered in that context. And it's not just between Christians and Muslims. There have been similar stories in many religious traditions where those who refused to convert were martyred. The point is that history is full of these complicated and often tragic events on all sides, and naming them can sometimes depend on which historical period or region we're talking about. So it's really about understanding that this is a shared human history, and it's important to acknowledge all sides.
Are people nowadays martyred, and what was the point? Is it necessary for us to force each other into different beliefs, or at the end is all one? It doesn't matter who we pray to? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really thoughtful question, and I think a lot of people today would say that ideally, no one should be forced into a belief system. In the modern world, there's a much bigger emphasis on religious freedom and the idea that everyone should have the right to choose their own faith or their own beliefs. Unfortunately, there are still places in the world where people are persecuted or even killed for their beliefs, but a lot of people are working toward a world where that doesn't happen. In terms of whether it all comes down to the same thing, well, a lot of people do believe that different religions are just different paths to a similar truth, and that what really matters is how we treat each other with compassion and respect. So from that perspective, the idea is to focus on our shared humanity and let people believe what they believe. I think that's a hopeful way to look at it, and hopefully we keep moving in that direction.
Can you tell me about America? Like, there is a law here that guarantees religious freedom. What is it? Can you please tell me what is it about America that it's good about it?
Absolutely. So in the United States, religious freedom is a fundamental right that's protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. The First Amendment says that Congress can't make any law establishing a religion or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So basically it means that people have the right to practice whatever religion they choose or not practice any religion at all without interference from the government. And that's a really important principle in American life. It helps create a society where people of many different faiths can live together peacefully and where everyone has the freedom to follow their own beliefs. And while it's not always perfect in practice, the principle of religious freedom is definitely one of the strengths of the American system.
What other countries have religious freedom like in the US? Can you name them?
Yeah, definitely. So there are quite a few countries around the world that also uphold religious freedom as a fundamental right. For example, Canada has strong protections for religious freedom in its Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Many European countries like Germany, the UK, and France also have legal protections for religious freedom, although they might have different ways of balancing it with other laws. India has constitutional guarantees of religious freedom, recognizing the country's diversity of faiths. And there are plenty of other places around the world, like Australia or Brazil, that have similar commitments to allowing people to practice their religion freely. Of course, the specifics can vary from country to country, but a lot of nations do value and protect that principle.
Okay, I have a question. In Senegal, West Africa, the motto below the flag, it says un pays, une foi, which means one country, one belief, one religion. While the little Gambia, which is like a stab in the back by the Europeans, because the Senegal itself is a huge country like that, but there is a river passing through. So the British, what they did is they stopped themselves into Africa, to the left side, and they made that little country speak only English and pray to Jesus. And while the rest of the country says La ilaha illallah. So what do you think, if there is a point at one point that they will become one again, because now they are divided, they teach each other English and French, but one un pays, une foi means one country, one belief. Do you think that will divide it more? Because since these are Christian, they are also believers. Is there a way for them to unite and maybe change deux pays and you, or what's your take on it? What do you believe? What do you think?
I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Oh, you're going away. Such an important question. Thank you very much.